Jimmy Dore is at the UN, and you'll be shocked who he's a guest of. Just like Max Blumenthal. There's a member of the UN Security Council that I guess one of the countries, I don't know who they are. You guys probably know. I don't know. I have to look it up. We're not going to do all this because there's no fucking point. But he makes a statement. He can't even fucking fly to New York for this. Maybe he's just afraid. Does he have a warrant? I don't know. Maybe there's too many comedians in New York that he's read their jokes on stage out loud with uncredited. And he dare not step foot near the cellar or something. Anyways, this is Jimmy Dore speaking at the UN.
In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in this meeting. Mr. Dirk Polman, journalist, and Mr. Jimmy Dore, political commentator.
Political commentator. Thank you, Albania.
It is so decided. I now give the floor to Mr.
Oh, because the Russians invited them and they just kind of, it's perfunctory.
Jimmy Dore.
They're presiding over it. Look at her face. Jimmy Dore. Oh, God. Here we go.
Greetings, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council. I'm here to speak today about the attack on the Nord Stream pipeline that took...
Oh, thank God he's an expert. He's obviously he's inside a submarine right now. He's going to speak about the fucking Nord Stream? Oh, I can't wait. He's got new information.
...place 1 year ago on September 26, 2022. 4 explosions ruptured the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines that carried natural gas from Russia to Europe.
False. Okay, at that point, Nord Stream 1 was still delivering some. Nord Stream 2 had not come online, and Germany had already stated they were not going to receive natural gas through Nord Stream 2. It was dead. It was a defunct pipeline at that point. Trump, Biden had come in after, tried to normalize shit to try and placate Russia a little bit to see if they could walk them back. They knew they couldn't. And then from that point on, he denied any companies that in the United States are licensed in the United States, and the European Union did the exact same thing, that they cannot insure the pipeline. So if it gets, if it ruptures or breaks or whatever, Russia has to pay for its fixing by themselves.
It was the biggest act of industrial sabotage in human history.
Citation needed.
Severing the main artery for energy from Russia to Germany, cheap energy that was critical to maintaining Germany's industrial base.
By the way, who drafted this fucking statement? He's reading a statement, which is adorable. And I don't know why someone wrote it on a piece of paper and put it on top of the laptop or the camera or wherever the fuck it is.
We have heard every...
Why are they cutting to him? Oh, because they're both on the same Zoom call, and whoever makes noise, his mic's turned up louder, and it automatically goes. You ever on a FaceTime call and somebody's like dog barks in the background, and Zoom or FaceTime will automatically think that they're the one speaking because it's a louder, their microphone is hotter than the other one. This is going to be great.
...and ridiculous theory on how this happened. Now, you don't need to be a genius investigative reporter to...
Well, thank God, because I don't know how you would have been invited.
...figure out who was the culprit of the Nord Stream attack.
Okay, who was the culprit of the Nord Stream attack?
Incredibly, most Western news outlets ignore the fact that the President of the United States, Joe Biden himself, announced on February 9th, 2022, that he would, in fact, attack the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Oh, no, he didn't. He said they'd bring it to an end, which they already had done. They had already ended Nord Stream. Nord Stream was over. The Germans weren't going to use it anymore. The Russians had already attacked. They were already in Ukraine. It was already the money they were saving was blood money. The Germans are very aware of that. They in the not too distant past, the Germans themselves played footsie with some really awful fucking behavior, and they'd rather not align themselves with effectively the genocide of another group of people in an area, by the way, that geographically contains some of the concentration camps that they themselves put together. The Nord Stream 2 was over at that point.
Saying, and I quote, if Russia invades Ukraine, tanks crossing the border again, there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Right, and that's what happened. It ended, but it didn't. They didn't have to blow it up. It just stopped.
We will bring an end to it. I promise you, we will be able to do it.
Right, and they did. They didn't need to blow it up. They denied anybody the ability to insure it, which made the gas going through it untenably expensive if they decided to do it. And the Germans themselves, while they played footsie for a little while or were slow walking it for a bit, and they were given a little leeway because they needed more of the fuel than anybody else in the European Union, eventually themselves said, fuck off, we're not using it anymore, because they were getting so much like worldwide bad press. And again, the Germans have a bit of a history around, effectively the genocide of people in that area of the world.
Even with that pre-admission of guilt from the President of the United States, most of the Western press remained baffled as to who could have pulled off the greatest act of eco-terrorism in history. Well,
the greatest act of eco-terrorism. Well, obviously, Jimmy's either blissfully unaware or just, I guess, run-of-the-mill fucking stupid, and doesn't know that the easiest way to blow a pipeline up is if you have access to either side of it, and you can put in a pig, a pipeline inspection gadget, one of those roving things that tests the pressure. It's basically a robot with wheels on all sides of it that can go through the pipeline and check the pressure along the way. And you just have it drag an explosive and then detonate it when it reaches its position, or set it on a timer and let it do that. Where it can, by the way, vent all the gas into the air, and then you can reinflate it with just air so that you don't have to depressurize the unused pipeline back through your factory when there's no one there to run it because you've sent them off to Ukraine to be cannon fodder.
We don't have to rely on my interpretation of President Biden's clear threat to attack the pipeline.
Yes, Seymour Hersh has a friend. Seymour Hersh, the greatest political plagiarist in American history. The man who never writes a story until someone else has written it first. Even the story of the My Lai massacre, that motherfucker just cribbed the entire story from the guy who did the actual reporting on it. You know what the difference between that guy's reporting and Seymour Hersh's is? Seymour Hersh took out lessened the references to the soldiers that actually stopped the massacre, that put themselves between Charlie Company and the people of My Lai. They just kind of minimized that part of it for, hippie impact at the time.
Actually have Seymour Hersh, a genius investigator.
Which is, again, Seymour Hersh's story was on his Substack, because the nice thing about Substack is you don't have to have an editor checking your shit.
Reporter with impeccable reputation and credentials.
No, I pecked them. I pecked them a lot. I pecked those credentials to fucking, like a fucking hen on coke. I pecked his credentials. Fuck you. Hold on one second. Just in case anybody wonders, hold on. Let's see if they... Look at this. This is the Britannica. There we go. Trying to find the... trying to find the part of the platoon. Williams County. There you go. Short distance. This is a story. Hold it up. Platoon. Whoops. Yeah, so here is one second. There's the... I'm trying to find... Yeah, here you go. This is the part that My Life, for those of you who don't know, Charlie Company basically were told that anybody who was left behind in this village, they've been told to clear out, and anybody who was left behind in this village was of Viet Cong and blah, blah, blah. And these, I mean, this was at the height of just fucking everybody was a goddamn mess. And it was grotesque what Charlie Company did. But let's revisit a moment in it, shall we, for a second. Sergeant Ron Haberl, a U.S. Army photographer attached to Charlie Company, documented the events of that day. He used a black and white camera for official Army records, but shot in color on his personal camera. Many of the black and white images depicted soldiers questioning prisoners, searching possessions, burning huts. Although the destruction of property violated U.S. military command directives, which is important. They were told not to, they did it anyways. Such actions were typical of a search and destroy mission and did not provide direct evidence of war crimes. Haberl's personal color photographs, which he did not turn over to the Army, were later published in the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Life magazine. One graphically depicted a trail littered with the bodies of dead women, children, and infants, and another captured a group of terrified women and children moments before they were shot. These photographs served to galvanize the anti-Vietnam War movement and would become some of the most recognizable images of the war. As the massacre was taking place, Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson, who is a fucking hero, was flying a scout helicopter at low altitude above My Lai. Observing wounded civilians, he marked their locations with smoke grenades and radioed for troops on the ground to proceed to those positions to administer medical aid. After refueling, Thompson returned to My Lai only to see that the wounded civilians subsequently had been killed. Spotting a squad of U.S. soldiers converging on more than a dozen women and children, Thompson landed his helicopter between the two groups. Thompson's door gunner, Lawrence Coburn, and his crew chief, Glenn Andreatta, who are all fucking heroes, manned their weapons as Thompson hailed other helicopters to join him in ferrying the civilians to safety. In 1998, Thompson, Coburn, and Andreatta posthumously were awarded the Soldier's Medal for acts of extraordinary bravery not involving contact with the enemy. Although I would say the Charlie Company was fucked up and at that point had become the enemy at that point. By 11 a.m., as many as 500 Vietnamese civilians had been... By the way, they leave out the part in this one, in this Britannica part, where he ordered his gunners to fire on the soldiers and told them, we will fire on you if you proceed towards these women and children. Now, the sort of the story of it, this guy, Ronald Rittenauer, in 1968, who was a helicopter door gunner who had trained with members of Charlie Company, had begun to pursue an informal investigation of the massacre after learning it from troops who had been present that day. Rittenauer is the guy who should get the credit for breaking open the My Lai story. Seymour Hersh is a tick on this fucking dog. His entire cred as a reporter is built on having like some sort of inside connection that he always fucking talks about inside the, I don't know, in the CIA or whatever the fuck that feeds him shit. Rittenauer's the fucking man. Rittenauer did all the reporting on this, got all this stuff, and put the story together. It's because of him that this shit came out, not because of Seymour Hersh. Seymour Hersh fucking rubber stamped it and pushed it on because he had a cush job back in the States. Rittenauer did this reporting both in Vietnam and... Rittenauer spent the rest of his time in Vietnam gathering witnesses' testimony, having returned to the United States and separated from the Army. On March 29, 1969, Rittenauer mailed a report of his findings to the Pinkville incident, which is what it was called at the time, to members of Congress, the Pentagon, and others in Washington. This letter sparked official investigations of both the massacre itself and the subsequent cover-up. Rittenauer, Medina, Thompson, and Calley were among those interviewed, and in September 1969, Calley was charged with the murder of 109 Vietnamese civilians. Acting on a tip, journalist Seymour Hersh made contact with Calley's defense team. You heard that right. Seymour Hersh got a tip from somebody, and who did he contact? Did he contact Rittenauer? Did he take a plane over to Vietnam and start re-interviewing people? Did he fucking walk around like John Rambo finding retired Vietnam vets with fucking cancer from Agent Orange and get their deathbed confessions about the shit that Charlie Company did on that day? No. He got a tip from some fucker in the intelligence community and went immediately to talk to the defense team of the dude who did the murders. Fuck Seymour Hersh. Fuck him. I'm sick of this shit. This is Seymour Hersh has stolen valor from Rittenhour for fucking 5 decades. Do I know that nobody's ever going to cop to this? Do I think anybody at Democracy Now! Is going to stop fucking gargling Seymour Hersh's balls for 2 fucking seconds to at least give credit to Rittenhour for actually breaking this fucking story? I'm fucking enraged by this bullshit. Rittenhour is the hero of the My Lai massacre story. Fuck Seymour Hersh and his bullshit. He did everything Seymour Hersh has ever done in terms of journalists was from the warm side of a bay window with a fucking bourbon in his hand. Eat shit. Other than that, I have no opinion. And again, like, the photographer Thompson who took the Hugh Thompson who was flying, and then the photographer who kept his color picture secret, you know, probably had to smuggle the fucking film out of Vietnam in his ass like Bruce Willis's watch in Pulp Fiction. And everybody's fucking raising a toast to Seymour fucking Hersh. No. Enough. I'm done. Nobody's going to say it but me. Fine. I'm going to say it. Seymour Hersh is a fucking fraud. He barnacles on other people's work and buries the people who did the actual journalism. And then it does these fucking armchair interviews with Jimmy Dore in his fucking lounge chair in his home office where he scrounged up this bullshit. Fuck off, Seymour Hersh. I'm done. I'm not, yeah. And anybody who has a problem with what I'm saying, clip the fuck out of this and put it everywhere. I don't care. I will stand by it through and through. I don't give a shit. Seymour Hersh is a fucking fraud. All right, enough said. There we go. If anything, Jimmy's bullshit Russia paid for, RT statement to the UN at least gave us a moment where we can clarify that blotch on American journalism that has been sitting there stinking the fucking place up for decades. Ugh. I feel so much. Oh God, I feel like I got this off. I finally just like this load. It's come off me. I just finally, I think I'm literally the only person saying this, but I won't be the last. Because anybody who thinks this shit through for more than 2 minutes. Frack. Oof. Whew. God damn.
Reported that in June of 2022, United States Navy divers operating under the cover of a widely publicized summer NATO exercise known as Baltops 22 planted the remotely triggered...
No. Real quick. Same shit. And this, I'm just going to leave this because we've heard this shit before. It's just kind of a written statement. It's not really got any value. Seymour Hersh did not say that they did this. Seymour Hersh said that his source, his intel source, his secret intel source that has been passing him shit for years under the... I mean, again, how the fuck do you know it's true? If you got a hook in Seymour Hersh's lip, how the fuck does he even know he's talking to the same person? But that person told him this story. He wasn't down there with a fucking air tank on, dressed like an action figure from a 70s, television show. Get out of here.
Explosives that 3 months later...
Yeah, they said... So, There are more cameras on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline than any pipeline in the world. Russians have pressure gauges on it and sensors around it on the entire pipeline. It's brand new. Because they had to promise the EU and Germany that it wouldn't leak because of our trend towards ecologically sound uses of fossil fuel, moving away from oil to natural gas to not using it anymore. That had to be the standard. The Russians have video of every 15 fucking feet of that pipeline. They have sensor data all throughout. They know exactly like when and where the explosion happened. And also, for those of us that saw the actual footage, the pipeline, the shell of the pipeline, is arcing out like this. Now, the lie you'll hear from a bunch of other people is that, well, they planted the explosives under and the whole thing went up like that. No, it goes like that because it's a fucking pig. They put a pig in it and they blew up their own pipeline because they didn't want to vent the gas back through their end because they didn't have anybody to monitor it. Piss off. Anyways, if I keep that going there, I will just get all riled up. But I'm glad we got to address that. I think it's important. I think calling bullshit on that again is very helpful. And again, I will say with I'm completely comfortable in calling Seymour Hersh a fucking fraud.